Hey everybody, good morning. It is day 74. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Spiritual healthcare. We are back. We are back. It is good to see everybody. I hope everyone had a good evening yesterday. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's always so nice to see everybody in the morning. I love it. I love it. I love it. Good morning, guys. It is good to see you. Today we've got such a great topic today. I'm excited about this one because this is like, I think everybody has done this. I see it all the time in the paranormal world. We're going to talk about a little bit about paranormal television online and stuff like that today, so that's going to be super cool. Hey Wes, hey Marge, hey Patricia, Dale's there. Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody. It is good to see you guys. So lots of really good information today about paranormal television and paranormal, like, just, you know, all sorts of that stuff in that genre. Good morning, Kaz. Nice to see you. We've got we got some good stuff for you guys today. And I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, or have been paying attention to our crazy, like, you know, weather and all the things that are going on outside. Good morning, Sally. Good morning, Jay, Amanda. Nice to see you all. But tonight we are going to be getting a strawberry moon. We're going to be getting a strawberry moon, and this is like, it's super, super rare. And so it's going to be this great big full moon, and a lot of people think that it's about the color of the moon, and it's not. It's actually it's a Algonquin tribe name for this one particular type of moon, because it grew, or it tended to show up during strawberry season. So we've got this amazing strawberry moon that's going to be tonight. So for the next like 3 nights, it's going to look like the moon is totally full. So check that out. Like, if you guys have clear skies, it's like, yeah, it's worth it. Good morning, Brandy and Shadow and Sandy. Nice to see you guys. It's so good to see everybody today. So if you guys have clear skies, check out the moon. We actually have a clear sky right now, which is like, I don't know what it is about Alberta, but we typically, when there's like a meteor shower or there's a good moon or eclipse or something like that, we're cloudy. Like, it's ridiculous. We're cloudy. Good morning, Lori. Nice to see you. There's a lot today that we can get into, and I really wanted to talk about a really great question that came in last night, and I thought it was a great thing to discuss in terms of paranormal online shows, as well as the paranormal reality TV and how reality TV works and all of that kind of thing. So I want to get into all of that. Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Connor. Nice to see you. Hey, Connor's a fellow fire performer and stuff, and he actually does. He lives right up the road from me, and he's really, really good and does a live stream, and he makes these amazing Harry Potter wands, and they're really good. So if you guys are really into Harry Potter, check out Connor Vanders, because it's amazing and awesome. I have one of his wands, and it's just so cool. So. So welcome. Good morning, guys. Good morning. And it is, as I say, it's good. I hope you guys are having good weather there. Despite all of the things that are going on, I hope you guys are keeping your peace and your center. So as we move along through today, there's a couple of things that I wanted to cover. But I also wanted to start with something that Dan had noticed on Twitter. Connor says thank you for the plug. Of course, because like it seriously, his work is amazing, and it's super cool. So and because there's been people, of course, especially since the pandemic, that have been, in sort of the paranormal news, creating YouTube shows and stuff like that. And there's been a number of YouTube shows and things like that online, regarding, like, ghost hunting and stuff like that. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. And what do we do when we end up with watching something, or see somebody doing procedures that, like, we don't agree with, or we think are unsafe, or all of those things? What do we do? How do we deal with that? Do we approach these people? What do we say? How do we deal with that? And in this day and age, now it's not just about the paranormal stuff that we see, of course, on YouTube and things like that. It's about stuff maybe we're seeing in practice and stuff like that that's happening in our field, or in our in our immediate environment that's not good. So what do we do? How do we deal with that? So I wanted to get into that, and I think the first the first thing that I wanted to break down in regards to paranormal YouTube and stuff like that, because it's been in the news, especially a lot lately, because when the pandemic first started, when we first started to realize that we had to go on retreat and lockdown for a while, people were asking within the paranormal community, can we still go out, and if the location's abandoned, is that safe? Can we still go out there? Can we film it? And there were people out there that were doing it and getting in a lot of shit because people were going, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be out. So there was a lot of infighting that was going on within sort of the paranormal YouTube online world for a while. But I think there's a few different things I think we have to look at here. Do we then, Wes is saying, calling the correctional officers paranormal society, because you know what, Wes, I don't know who runs that. Wes is the one that runs that. Yeah. But so that's what you do, apparently. That's what you do. So what do we do? How do we deal with it? How do we move into that? And do we take a stand and call people out? So here's my take on this, okay? So we tend as people to sometimes either avoid ourselves or avoid what we've got going on by making stuff about other people. And there's always that point at which you have to turn around and call someone out and say, you know what, you gotta stop. I'm gonna warn you. Here's the dangers. Here's the list of dangers. These things could happen. I'm gonna try to convince you to, not go out, to not do these things, to, oh my God, I think this person's in trouble or in danger or something like that. I'm gonna have to convince them. But here's the thing about convincing people, is that as soon as we get into that mode of convincing, we've given our power away. We really have. We can have a really great debate with somebody. We can, sit down and talk things out with someone. But as soon as we're really leaning into trying to change their experience, then we end up sort of setting ourselves back a little bit, because we're then wrapped up in the actual conclusion, right? So we have to be really careful about getting attached to the outcome of what that person is doing or something like that. So it's if we're not attached to the outcome and we're dealing with it moment by moment by moment, that can absolutely really, really help. Because we end up, if we set an intention for the conversation before we go into it, and say, for example, if we're dealing with a conversation like, somebody's being reckless, right? We see investigators, something like that, being completely reckless, or just somebody in our experience that's being completely reckless. If we set the intention of the conversation to be, I want to make you aware of your behavior and possible consequences of that behavior, then no matter what that person's answer is to whatever you're saying, it's gonna be enough. It's gonna be enough, because you've met that intention, which is, I made you aware. I've got, you now know what could possibly happen. And at that point, it's just time to detach from it, because otherwise we get wrapped up into this, I've got to convince you of this thing. And then usually it ends up in disappointment or a fight most of the time, if that person's not willing to bend. So it really comes back to some of the stuff that we've been talking about in spiritual healthcare, when we say we can't make other people's crazy about us. We really can't. And especially right now, we just can't do that. We have to realize that us being a demonstration going forward, especially in the times that we're in right now, is going to teach a lot louder than what words teach. So how we are demonstrating our energy and into the world is a big thing. When we look at, we've talked a lot within the last number of weeks about making up stories about ourselves, right? We've talked a lot about that. Making a story about our worth, our value to the world, and all of those things. But you know what we also do is we make up stories about other people. We really do. We fill in the blanks, and we sometimes, when we don't know that we matter, we start to take on other people's stuff. We just do. We start to make it about them, and we get our meaning and our mattering from our story. We really do. So the story that we're telling ourselves, that's how we give ourselves meaning and value and all of those things, is what we're telling ourselves in our head. And that's why that dialogue, that internal dialogue, is just so important, is to be able to be conscious of what we're doing. But we tend to do that, as I say, with other people. We tell a story about others and what they're doing and why they're doing it, and then we turn around and we blame them for it. Right? So when we're seeing all of these different things that are coming up on YouTube, that are coming up on reality television, we don't really understand a lot of the time what's going on underneath and what that person's story actually is. I like to think, whenever I choose a show to do, when I'm going on, when somebody, a producer, emails me or something like that, the first thing that I always do is check in with myself. I don't want to be dealing with drama. Okay, I don't want to deal with drama. I want to be dealing with the trauma of what's gone on within that experience that I'm going to be dealing with, which is how I approach haunted hospitals. It's how I approach paranormal 911, and it was even how I approached a haunting back in the day, when I was on Discovery Channel back in the early 2000s, where I really wanted to check in, because I didn't want to be doing television. I didn't want to be doing television for the sake of television. I wanted to be able to use it as a platform, to be able to talk about these experiences, talk about the trauma that's gone on, and use it that way. So it's about the trauma, not the drama. And with reality TV, especially, is like some of the shows out there, it's crazy. People are crazy, and they will do anything to get on television. Like, it's insane. And in turn, oftentimes you'll get the producers and things like that who will do anything in order to make that moment more extreme and stuff like that. And the problem with reality television nowadays is that behavior gets exploited and then it gets rewarded. So that becomes a real issue with paranormal, or like with paranormal reality shows, whether they're on YouTube or whatever. So we have to be really careful about that and be able to get information. So it's about gathering data. Okay, so this is, and I know that sounds boring, but it's really not. And this is something you guys can apply to everybody in your experience. Marge, yeah. But this is something you guys can apply to everybody in your experience, because when we're taking the standpoint of that detachment, when we're able to, as I say, set an intention for the conversation, set an intention for, just not being attached to the outcome, having that level of detachment, what we can end up doing at that point is to listen to what we're being told. See the behavior, look at the behavior that's going on, and begin to gather data instead of judgment. We're not out to be sitting there and taking the inventory of the people that are around us. But here's the thing is, Dr. Phil has always said, don't give people the benefit of the doubt. And there's some serious truth to that, because we don't have to turn around and give people the benefit of the doubt. We can remove ourselves and just gather data. If that person's got a 6-month history of lying, then we can't turn around and assume now that they're telling us the truth. If we've got a TV show, for instance, that has a long history of skewing people's stories, the next story they put in front of you, we can't give that the benefit of the doubt and say they're probably, this one is probably real. We have to be able to look and gather data. What are we seeing in this history, whether it be a TV show or a person or whatever it is? What do we see in the history that is going to determine the behavior of today? And so that's something we have to begin to analyze and pay attention to. We tend in our head to edit things to make them comfortable. We have to edit things to make them, we edit things to make them comfortable rather than true. And let me tell you, whether it be in television or our day-to-day lives or whatever we are doing to edit that down in our heads, as soon as we're not dealing with the truth, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. We got to tell the truth and be honest about the information that we're getting, because as soon as we're skewing that information, it's not going to end well. Not only are you then not on the same page as to of what's going on, but there's going to be you're going to end up landing yourself in and some serious disappointment. So we have to be careful. Don't reward bad behavior. Gather your data. Take a look at what the experience is that you are having, and make sure that you're not filling in the blanks of that person's story. Because honestly, like when we get into dealing with individuals, and those of you guys who suffer from anxiety, I've so many friends that suffer with anxiety. People struggle with this, but it's in those moments, and I think we've all been there to some degree. It's like it's a spectrum, right? We've all been there to some degree. When we start to be attached to the story in our head, especially when we're dealing with stuff like anxiety, what ends up happening is we're filling in all the blanks based on our poor self-worth. That's it. That's what we do. Our anxiety is the worst for that, because it fills in the blanks based on your bad story, or the bad story that it's trying to tell you. The other day we talked about Eckhart Tolle's take on pain and hurt and things like that, and it being what he calls the pain body, and so almost like a separate entity that gets triggered on its own and behaves on its own and tells ourselves these different stories. And when we look at it in that way, we really do. We begin to realize that it's like it's feeding us this information and telling us this story, and then we're filling in these blanks based on what that is. So we've got to be careful. We see it all as a filter. It's all coming through a filter, and when our filter is skewing that, as I say, we tend to edit down. We edit we delete the idea of things that we don't want to hear. And probably one of the most significant things where that's happened has been in our history books, right? When we look back and there's bits and pieces in history, and we're going, well, wait a minute, like that doesn't sound right. Here in Alberta, that's been a major problem, with probably one of the most haunted locations here in Edmonton. And it was an old hospital at the time, where there had been abuses that had been perpetuated for decades around a tuberculosis outbreak. And when it started to come to light as to what exactly had happened, and people were severely abused, the First Nations people were treated terribly. And as soon as it started to come to light, then immediately the information, they were trying to edit that information down so that it was comfortable for them, right? Because oftentimes when we get people who are kind of sitting in that space, and the information makes them uncomfortable, they have to make you wrong in order to deal with it. If you've done something wrong, then automatically, then it takes the onus from them and allows them to put it somewhere else. Then they don't have to look at themselves. If they can make you the bad guy, then they don't have to look at themselves. And the people will fight tooth and nail for this. Make no mistake. The people will go to battle for this. And it's a really scary thing sometimes, because that's how you get wars starting because of this kind of thing. It's like it's making somebody else wrong, or somebody else the villain, whether it be an individual or a somebody's skin color or whatever it is. They have to somehow twist and demonize you so that they don't have to look at themselves, and that's just, it's not good. It's not good. But we have to be conscious about how toxic this is. The other thing that I wanted to bring to the table with you guys today, which is sort of a twist on how we've been viewing this current situation, because there's been so many people that have had events canceled. I'm definitely one of them. I've, needless to say, not been working because I can't hold classes or help people with investigations and nothing like that. So I think we have to start to reframe this a little bit, and this is definitely for all of you guys who are struggling with their anxiety over the last little while, because there's been so much crazy going on. I think we have to begin to reframe the idea that 2020 is canceled. What if we change our language? What if 2020 is the year we've been waiting on? What if it's the year we've been waiting on? It's a year that's so uncomfortable, so rough, that it's actually creating and making the change that we have been hoping for as a global consciousness and state of, and just state of being, that we've been asking for decades. So I want us to start thinking about this a little bit differently. What if this is the year that we finally accept different? What if we've made a decision? What if we've made a decision? So as I say, it's easy for us to turn around and look at this and go, all of these plans were canceled. I can't go do this. I can't go do that. All of these things are just, it's just screaming right now. And people are screaming right now. But I think we do. I think we have to take a look and start to reframe this. 2020 is not canceled, is the year we've been waiting on. It's the year we've been waiting on. And Connor's saying it's a year of growth. Growing pains are the worst. Absolutely. That's it, right? This growing out of our comfort zone is not comfortable. It's not comfortable. It never will be comfortable. It's always going to push us further in one direction or another. But we have to start realizing that in the same way that we look at television, that we look at the people in our experience, that we look, we have to understand that, it comes back to what I was saying at the beginning. This is about, let's set the intention. Did we meet our intention? And if our intention is change, then we are meeting that intention. That's what we're doing right now. We're meeting that intention, regardless of how everything comes out on the other end. We have to start to detach from that and realize that the intention of change, of awareness, of all of that has now become present. It's become present. It's all come to the surface. I always use the example of it's like having a glass of water and you've got dirt in the bottom of the glass of water and you pour water into it, all that sediment starts to come up to the surface, right? So I like that analogy because it reminds me so much of when you start to pour awareness and love on something, all that sediment comes up to the surface and it doesn't look pretty, right? Now you can't drink your water looks awful, but it's there. It's there. And now you can start to filter it out, because when the sediment's sitting at the bottom, you can't filter through it. You just can't. So we have to be able to do that. And Sally's saying we have to rise above adversity. I would say even we have to be in the adversity and move through it, because I think so much of the time, we've become so good at being able to be over top of it, and somehow it keeps getting missed. The work keeps getting missed. The ability to kind of plug in and I think really hear it just keeps getting missed, and I think it's been part of the problem over the last number of years. And as I say, of course, we've got this bombardment now of live streaming and people that are coming out and wanting to talk about this stuff and whatever. And I think being able to have these and hold these discussions, even like we do here on Spiritual Healthcare, is part of the awareness and part of the healing process. But we also have to be aware that we can't reward bad behavior either. We just can't. And if we see somebody who's doing crazy, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Report them if they're doing something, that's off the wall and negative and they're being terrible, or they're being bigots, or they're being, if they're being awful, report them. But we really do have our own stuff to deal with right now. We really do. And as soon as we start to make it about these other people, we stop looking inwards, and we lose our point of power, which is our connection. And we can't afford now to lose that inner point of power. I was talking to my partner actually yesterday. I was having this really good discussion with him about how being in our connection when something is going on is the best gift that we can give to our people, the people in our family. And it's important, like for me, for example, to be able to stay healthy, to be able to stay mentally sound, to be able to all of that. And as soon as we're starting to look at others and trying to fix these other people and convince them of something, we've moved our point of power. So that's the process that I wanted to give you guys today, is that if you run into this as you're going forward, before you approach someone who is, doing something weird or doing something like, they shouldn't be doing on YouTube or Facebook or, whatever, is set your intention for awareness rather than to convince them to be different. Set the intention of awareness, and say what the consequences might be. Express your concerns and do that, but don't be attached to the outcome, because as soon as we end up in disappointment. It's not good. Kaz is saying bad behavior only thrives with attention. Yeah, that's exactly it. Is that and when we've got so many online platforms now, it's easy for bad behavior to get rewarded. It just is. I've felt so fortunate with the producers and the people that I've worked with over the years, and how diligent they have been with me about supporting truth and honesty and answers, and understanding what my values are, I should say, when I'm coming into these experiences with the shows and stuff like that. Because I'm not into doing TV. I'm into doing lessons and teaching, and using that as a platform to move things forward and move people through what they're dealing with, which is what EntitySeeker is really about. It's about allowing people to move through their experiences with the paranormal, and get out of them what they need to get out of them, as well as getting them just having fun with it. So I wanted to read you guys a little prayer from Ayanla, Faith in the Valley, because I thought this was so beautiful and so fitting for today and everything that we've talked about. So check this out. Dear self, I will not assault my mind or spirit with a lengthy discourse about the horror against the virtues of being who I am. I will begin right now where I am, getting to those places. I can go if I choose to. I will begin with the first step according to spiritual law, doing all that is required for healing, transformation, and evolution. You must bare your soul, they say, but I know you cannot clean the fish and leave the water dirty. I am the fish. I am everlasting substance. The waters are my emotions. They must be cleaned. I must let the water out and fill myself with new thoughts and new feelings and new energy. Then and only then will I be able to feed the multitudes. It is time to cleanse my mind. I love that. I just fell in love with that today. I thought that was so good. Ayanla's she's just so on the money with so much. Just adore her. So anyway, you guys, I wanted to leave you with our new affirmations today as well. I love these. And I think they're so fitting for where we are. So everybody take a breath. I am a channel of peace and well-being, and my need for peace is abundantly met. I unconditionally accept, love, and appreciate myself and who I am. I recognize and am grateful for the abundance that is constantly flowing into my life, which I can choose to allow or not. I feel with every breath a sense of peace and love. I help others by maintaining and tending to my connection with Source as much as possible. This well-being is accessible to me even in a sea of uncertainty. At this moment, all is well. I am able to liberate myself from my past and live with peace and serenity. I can see and appreciate all the beauty and abundance of the life around me. I am able to embrace love while letting go of fear. And I find peace with the soothing silence of my inner being. Everybody take a breath. So, I will see you guys on Monday on spiritual healthcare. This weekend, I'm going to be working diligently on the master class and moving through that. So Monday morning, we will be back. We will be continuing this work. And I want you guys to have an incredible weekend. Go back through the classes, share the playlist, and work on the things that we've worked on this week, because we've done a lot. We've done a lot of stuff. There's been a lot of information. There's been a lot to process about what's been going on in the world. And on Monday morning, we will be back doing the rest of the work for spiritual healthcare, because we've got more to do, and we're doing so incredibly well. So this is what we're going to do. As I say, practice this weekend, practice that story, writing your new story, loving yourself, doing all of that. And we will see you guys Monday morning. Here we go. My brain's already on rote already. Monday morning, spiritual healthcare, you guys, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. I will see you guys then. Have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.